Young billionaire finds a little girl alone in the park with a sign, "Wanted, a dad for the school dance." What happens next is unbelievable. Luke Bennett hated changes to his routine. His life functioned like one of his architectural designs, structured, predictable, and meticulously planned. Wake up at 6:15 a.m., coffee at 6:30 a.m., office at 7:45 a.m. There was no room for the unexpected in his days, much less his weekends. That Saturday morning, the sky was clear and the air was crisp. Luke put on his running shoes and headed out for his morning run in Riverside Park. 30 minutes. No more, no less. It had been this way for 5 years, ever since he opened his own architecture firm. At 33 years old, Luke Bennett was what many would call a success. His latest project, a sustainable cultural complex, had been featured in specialized magazines. He lived alone in a minimalist apartment overlooking the river. There was no shortage of clients, money, or date offers. What was missing, though he rarely admitted it, was something that didn't fit into his perfectly organized schedule. He was halfway through his run when something broke his concentration. Normally, he would push forward, ignoring distractions. But this time, he stopped. In an open area of the park, sitting alone on a green bench, was a little girl. Her blonde hair was tied in 2 uneven pigtails, her short legs dangling far from the ground. She wore a floral dress, clearly for a special occasion, with small blue and yellow flowers printed on the light fabric. She didn't look lost or scared. She looked determined. In her lap, she held a handmade sign with colorful, crooked letters. "Wanted, a dad for the school dance." Luke looked around, searching for an adult who might be with her. No one. Just the girl, the sign, and a small pink backpack beside her. Something about the scene bothered him deeply. He was 7 minutes behind on his routine. "Hi, mister," a little voice called out. "Are you looking at my sign? Are you interested?" Luke realized he had come to a complete stop, staring at the girl. She couldn't have been more than 5, and her voice had that childish sweetness that was impossible to ignore. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he replied, approaching cautiously. "Where's your mum?" The little girl shrugged. "I'm on an important mission," she said, ignoring his question. "It's very, very important." Luke sat down on the bench, keeping a respectful distance. "And what's this mission that's so important it needs a sign?" "I need a dad for the school dance today. It's a father-daughter dance, and I don't have a dad." She spoke with the typical sincerity of young children. The simplicity of her answer caught Luke off guard. There was no self-pity in her voice, just the direct logic of a child. "Today? The dance is today." "Yes, this afternoon. That's why I'm wearing my floral dress. Mommy said it's my prettiest one." She smoothed the fabric with pride. "But I need a dad to go with me." "She's at work. She works every day. And she gets sad when I talk about the dance." Her big blue eyes fixed on Luke. "You seem nice. Do you have kids?" "No. No wife, either." "So can you be my pretend dad, just for the dance today?" Luke should have said no. He should have explained that it wasn't appropriate, that she should talk to her mother, that maybe she could find an uncle or a family friend. But something in the little girl's eyes, a pure, trusting hope, stopped him. "What's your name?" he asked. "Chloe. Chloe Parker. I'm 5 years old." She held up an open hand, proud. "And you?" "Luke Bennett." "Luke," she repeated, as if testing the sound. "Will you dance with me today?" Luke smiled, surprised by her frankness. "Can I be your date?" Chloe looked at him curiously. "Do you know how to dance?" "Actually, I'm not very good at it," Luke admitted. "That's okay," she replied with a radiant smile. "I don't know how either. We can learn together." "Sounds like a good plan," Luke answered, laughing. "Promise you'll come?" "I promise," Luke replied, placing a hand over his heart. Then it's a deal," Chloe declared, putting her sign away in her pink backpack. "Are you really going with me?" "I am. In fact, I can walk you to the school now, if you want." Chloe's eyes lit up. "Really? You'll walk with me now?" "Of course. I can't let my dance partner go alone, can I?" Chloe shook her head, beaming. "No, you can't." Luke held out his hand, which Chloe promptly took. Together, they started walking through the park toward the exit. "The school is that way," Chloe pointed, guiding Luke with the confidence of someone who knew the path well. "It's not too far." As they walked, Chloe chattered non-stop, telling Luke about her teacher, her friends, and how excited she was for the dance. "There's going to be cake and music," she informed him, swinging her feet excitedly as she walked. "Do you like cake?" "I love cake, especially chocolate." "Me too," Chloe exclaimed enthusiastically. "We're going to be the best dancers." Luke couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. "So, is it Brookside Elementary on Maple Street?" "That's right," Chloe confirmed, pointing to a street ahead. "It's over there where the big flag is." As they neared the school, Luke could see the bustle of preparations for the event. Teachers and a few parents were arranging decorations in the schoolyard, and colorful banners announced the annual father-daughter dance. "The dance is at 3 o'clock, Chloe explained, still holding Luke's hand tightly. "You can't be late." "I'm never late," Luke promised. As they reached the school gates, a middle-aged woman noticed Chloe and came toward them. "Chloe, we were waiting for you to help with the decorations." "Miss Emily," Chloe exclaimed, "I brought my date for the dance." The teacher looked at Luke with a surprised expression but smiled politely. "Hello, I'm Emily Watson, Chloe's teacher. Luke Bennett," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "I met Chloe in the park today and, well, she invited me to the dance." Miss Emily seemed to understand the situation immediately, casting a compassionate glance at Chloe before smiling back at Luke. "Well, we're so happy you can come. The dance starts at 3, and we look forward to seeing you there." "I'm going to stay and help with the decorations," Chloe announced, letting go of Luke's hand. "You'll be back at 3, right?" "I'll be here," Luke assured her. "I won't be late." "Pinky promise?" Chloe held out her little finger. Luke linked his pinky with hers, sealing the deal. "Pinky promise?" Chloe smiled, satisfied, and ran off to join other children who were helping to blow up balloons. Miss Emily stayed behind for a moment. "I thank you," she said to Luke in a low voice. "Some children don't have parents present for these events, and it means the world to them." Luke nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. "See you at 3. As he walked away from the school, Luke looked back and saw Chloe excitedly helping with the decorations, her floral dress standing out among the other children. The image of the little girl with her sign and her determination had touched something inside him that had been dormant for a long time. For the first time in years, Luke Bennett was breaking his routine, and strangely, he didn't mind one bit. At 2:45 that afternoon, Luke parked his car in front of Brookside Elementary. He had traded his usual jeans and t-shirt for slacks and a light blue button-down shirt. It wasn't exactly formal wear, but it seemed appropriate for a father-daughter dance at an elementary school. On the passenger seat, a small bouquet of colorful daisies waited. Luke didn't know if it was customary to bring flowers to this kind of event, but he remembered his own father bringing flowers for his younger sister on special occasions, and it felt like the right gesture. The schoolyard was decorated with colorful ribbons and balloons. Families were entering through the main gate, fathers holding hands with their little daughters, all dressed in their best dresses. Luke felt a pang of nervousness. What if Chloe wasn't there? What if someone questioned his presence? He was about to start the car again and leave when he saw her. Standing on the front steps, Chloe was anxiously watching every car that arrived. Her floral dress shone in the sun, and someone had styled her hair in golden curls. She looked so small and hopeful that Luke felt something tighten in his chest. Taking a deep breath, he grabbed the flowers and got out of the car. When Chloe spotted him, her face lit up with a smile that seemed to transform the entire schoolyard. She ran down the steps and stopped in front of Luke, nearly bouncing with excitement. "You came?" "Of course I came. I promised." Chloe nodded, as if it was exactly what she expected, though her sparkling eyes revealed surprise and joy. "I brought these for you," Luke said, offering the bouquet. "So every dancer deserves flowers." Chloe's eyes widened at the sight of the colorful daisies. "Are these for me? For real? For real?" She took the bouquet reverently, as if it were made of crystal. "They're the most beautiful flowers in the whole world." Luke felt a strange warmth in his chest at her genuine joy. "Ready to show me how to dance?" he asked, holding out his hand. Yes. Chloe grabbed his hand confidently. Let's go dance. The school gym had been transformed into a ballroom. Colorful balloons and streamers decorated the ceiling. Tables with colorful cloths surrounded the dance floor, and a DJ was playing upbeat music. Dozens of fathers and daughters were already dancing in the center. That's Lily, Chloe pointed to a girl in a pink dress. And that's Emma, my best friend in the whole world. She waved frantically at a little girl with braids, who waved back. Luke let Chloe guide him to a table in the corner. She carefully placed her flowers in a cup of water she got from the beverage table, so they don't die, she explained seriously. An upbeat song started playing, and Chloe pulled Luke by the hand. This is my favorite song, let's dance. On the dance floor, Chloe started jumping and spinning without any coordination, but with contagious enthusiasm. Luke, feeling awkward at first, soon found himself infected by her joy. He started dancing clumsily, making Chloe laugh out loud. You dance funny, she exclaimed between laughs. I warned you, Luke replied, exaggerating his clumsy moves even more. For several minutes, they danced without caring about curious onlookers. Luke couldn't remember the last time he had had so much fun or laughed so freely. When a slow song began, Chloe looked at him with expectation. Now it's the real dance, she said seriously. You have to teach me. Luke lifted her up, placing her standing on his shoes. This way you won't step on my feet, he explained. Chloe laughed, holding onto his arms as Luke moved smoothly across the floor. She looked up at his face with an expression of pure happiness. We're really dancing, she whispered, as if it were a magical secret between them. Yes, we are, Luke confirmed, spinning her slowly. From on top of Luke's shoes, Chloe could see the whole gym. Everyone's looking at us. Because we're the best dancers, Luke replied, even though we dance funny. Especially because we dance funny. Chloe laughed again, a sound that seemed to light up the entire room. Luke realized he was smiling so much, his face hurt. The afternoon progressed with more dancing, games organized by the teachers, and a dessert table that Chloe visited 3 times, just for today, because it's special, she explained with a mouthful of chocolate. During a break, sitting at the table while Chloe drank some juice, she looked at Luke with curiosity. Why did you really come? The question caught Luke by surprise. Because you invited me. But you didn't even know me. Luke thought for a moment. Sometimes you meet special people when you least expect it. Chloe nodded, as if that made perfect sense. Like when I found a frog in the garden. I wasn't looking for it, but there it was. Luke laughed. Exactly like that. You're nice, Chloe declared. Better than a frog. Thank you. That's the best compliment I've ever received. When the DJ announced the last dance of the afternoon, Chloe suddenly became serious. This is the most important one, she informed him. Miss Emily said it's the special dance. On the dance floor, Luke lifted Chloe into his arms, and she rested her head on his shoulder as they moved slowly to the music. It was a soft song about precious moments and memories held in the heart. Thank you for not leaving me alone, Chloe whispered against his shoulder. Luke felt a lump in his throat. It was my pleasure, Chloe. It really was. When the music ended and the lights came on, it was time to say goodbye. Luke looked at his watch and realized the dance had come to an end. I think it's time for us to say goodbye, Chloe, he said, crouching down to her level. Are you leaving already? She asked, her blue eyes showing a flash of disappointment. Yes, the party's over, and your mum should be here to pick you up soon. Chloe nodded affirmatively, still holding the bouquet of daisies carefully. It was the best dance in the world, she declared, with the conviction only a 5-year-old can have. For me too, Luke answered sincerely. Chloe looked at the flowers and then at Luke. I thank you for today, she said, hugging him with her small arms. It was really, really fun. The sudden hug took Luke by surprise, but he returned it gently. Thank you for inviting me, Chloe. You're a great dancer. Chloe pulled away, smiling radiantly, her blue eyes shining with happiness. Bye, Luke, she said, waving with her free hand. Bye, Chloe. Luke left the gym and walked down the school hallway. As he walked away, he looked back one last time and saw Chloe showing the flowers to her friends her little face lit up with joy. On the way home, Luke couldn't stop smiling. His organized apartment, his award-winning projects, his perfectly timed routine. It all suddenly seemed less important than the memory of a little girl dancing on his shoes, laughing as if she had discovered the secret to happiness. That night, for the first time in years, Luke Bennett changed his routine. He didn't check emails, he didn't review projects, he didn't prepare his schedule for the following week. Instead, he stood on his apartment balcony, looking at the stars and thinking about blue eyes, clumsy dances, and the surprising weight of the words, "Thank you for not leaving me alone." Something had changed, and he knew there was no going back. 3 days after the dance, Luke found himself driving to Brookside Elementary for no clear reason. He parked across the street, watching the stream of children leaving at the end of the school day. He hadn't planned this, but something drew him back to that place. That's when he saw her, with her pink backpack and blonde hair bouncing as she came down the school steps. Without much thought, Luke got out of the car and crossed the street. "Chloe." She turned at the sound of her name, and her face lit up with surprise and joy. "Luke, you came back." The natural way she ran to him and took his hand made Luke smile. "I thought I'd pay you a visit. I hope you don't mind." "I don't mind at all," Chloe declared, skipping beside him. "Jad, you want to see my school inside? I can show you my classroom and where the library is and the place where we eat our snack." Her excitement was contagious. "I'd love a tour." Proudly, Chloe led him through the nearly empty school hallways, showing him every corner as if it were a hidden treasure. Her classroom with colorful drawings on the walls. The library, where she checked out books about animals. The cafeteria, where she sat with her friends. Luke listened attentively, fascinated not by the simplicity of the places, but by the sparkle in her eyes as she showed them to him. On their way out, they ran into Miss Emily, who smiled when she saw Luke. "Mr. Bennett, what a pleasant surprise." "Just Luke, please." "Luke came to visit me," Chloe announced proudly. "I showed him the whole school." "I see you've gained an admirer," Miss Emily commented quietly to Luke. "She's been talking about the dance all week." Luke felt a warmth in his chest. "It was fun for me, too." "Mummy is picking me up at 5, Chloe informed him, looking at the large clock on the wall. "Are you staying until then?" Luke hesitated. He didn't want to seem intrusive or create an awkward situation with the mother he had yet to meet. "Maybe not today, Chloe. I have a few things to take care of." The disappointment on her face was visible, but it only lasted a moment. "Okay, but will you come back another day?" "If you want me to." "I do," she affirmed with conviction. 2 days later, without warning, Luke returned to the school. Something compelled him to return, as if a part of him had been left behind in that place. Again, he waited for the students to be dismissed, and his heart leaped when he spotted Chloe in the crowd of children. When she saw him, her smile was immediate and bright. "You came back again." "I thought we could get some ice cream," Luke suggested. "If that's okay with you." "It's more than okay. I love ice cream." In the small ice cream shop near the school, Chloe excitedly recounted her day, how she had gotten all the math problems right, how she had helped Miss Emily hand out books, how she had stood up for a classmate when other boys were teasing him. "You really like your school, don't you?" Luke observed, as Chloe tackled a scoop of strawberry ice cream. "I do. I learn a ton of things and I have friends, and Miss Emily is super nice." "What's your favorite subject?" Chloe thought for a moment, her spoon paused in mid-air. "Science. We're learning about animals. Last week, Miss Emily brought a real hamster for us to see." Luke smiled at her enthusiasm. "I liked science when I was a kid, too." "Really? Did you want to be a scientist, too?" "For a while. Then I decided I wanted to build things." "Like what?" "Buildings, houses, bridges." Chloe's eyes widened. "You build real bridges?" "I design how they should be built. I'm an architect." "Architect," she repeated carefully. "That sounds important," Luke laughed. "Sometimes it is. Other times, it's just drawing a lot of lines and doing a lot of math." Chloe nodded as if she understood perfectly. The next day, to his own surprise, Luke found himself on his way to the school again. This time, he brought a small illustrated book about architecture for children that he had bought during his lunch break. Chloe was delighted with the gift. "Is this for me?" "For real?" "For real. I thought you might want to know more about what I do." Sitting on a park bench, Luke showed Chloe the colorful illustrations of different types of buildings, explaining in simple terms how they were constructed. "That one looks just like the building where I live," she exclaimed, pointing to an illustration of an apartment building. "Did you design my building?" Luke laughed. "No, but I've designed buildings like it. One day you can come see my building. It's not as pretty as these in the book, but it has a swing in the playground that goes super high." "Sounds great," Luke replied, noticing how Chloe naturally included him in her future plans. As they flipped through the book together, a cool breeze made Chloe shiver slightly. Without thinking, Luke took off his jacket and put it over her shoulders. "Better?" Chloe nodded, snuggling into the oversized jacket. "It's warm, and it smells like you." Luke didn't know how to respond to that, so he just smiled. "You know, my mum always asks who I hang out with after school," Chloe commented casually. "I tell her I'm with a friend." "What does she think about that?" "She thinks it's someone from my class," Chloe admitted. "I didn't tell her it's a grown-up friend." Luke felt a pang of concern. "Maybe we should talk to her. She might worry if she finds out you're with someone she doesn't know." Chloe bit her lip, thoughtful. "But what if she says I can't hang out with you anymore?" "She's your mum, Chloe. She wants what's best for you." "You're what's best for me," Chloe replied with the simple certainty of children. "You bring me books and take me for ice cream, and you really listen to me." Luke felt a lump in his throat. "Even so, it would be good if we could meet your mum, so she knows you're safe." Chloe seemed to consider this. "Okay, but not today, okay? She's working late today." "Who picks you up when she works late?" "Mrs. Green, our neighbor. She's nice, but she's really old and always falls asleep on the couch while I watch cartoons." Luke laughed at the frank description. At the end of the week, when Luke arrived at the school, Chloe seemed especially excited. "Guess what? Tomorrow is the school picnic. We're going to the big park and we can bring special snacks and toys. Sounds fun." "It's going to be super fun. Mommy made jam sandwiches for me to bring, my favorite." She paused, fidgeting with the strap of her backpack. You could come too. Miss Emily said families are welcome." Luke hesitated. "I don't know if that would be appropriate, Chloe. I'm not exactly family." "But you're my friend," she insisted. "My grown-up friend, it's almost the same." The simplicity of her logic made him smile. "I'll think about it, okay?" "Okay." She seemed satisfied with the answer. "But if you go, bring that cool hat of yours. The sun is going to be hot." "How do you know I have a cool hat?" "Because you're cool," she replied, as if it were obvious. "Cool people have cool hats." Luke laughed, always surprised by her peculiar reasoning. That day, as they walked through the park, Chloe talked about her home, her seashell collection, her favorite books. Every story, every detail, was a small window into her world. "My mom raised me with my grandparents. They're gone now," she commented, as they watched a squirrel climb a tree. The casual piece of information about her loss caught Luke by surprise. "I'm sorry, Chloe." She shrugged, with the natural acceptance of children. "Grandma made the best cookies. And Grandpa taught me how to fish, even though we never caught anything." Luke smiled at the image. "And your dad?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. "Never met him," Chloe replied, without any apparent sadness. "Mommy says it was complicated." Luke nodded, not wanting to press further. "I understand. But now I have you," she continued cheerfully, changing the subject as only children can. "You're my grown-up friend." "Grown-up friend," Luke repeated, smiling at the title. "I like that." On Saturday, against his better judgment, Luke found himself at the big park looking for the group from Brookside Elementary. There were dozens of families scattered across the lawn, enjoying the sunny day. Finally, he spotted the school's banner, and whoa, next to it, Chloe, in her yellow dress and her hair in a clumsy braid. She was sitting on a picnic blanket, alone, eating a sandwich. When Chloe saw him, her face lit up and she jumped to her feet, running toward him. "You came. And you brought the cool hat." Luke smiled, adjusting the hat in question. A promise is a promise. Come on, come see our spot. I got a really good one, near the big tree. As an excited Chloe dragged him along, Luke noticed the curious glances from some parents and teachers. Miss Emily, who was supervising the children, waved at him with a smile of recognition. "Luke, this is Miss Emily. Miss Emily, this is Luke, my grown-up friend I told you about." "We've met," Miss Emily replied gently. "It's good to see you again, Mr. Bennett." "Luke, please." "Luke came to the picnic with me," Chloe announced, holding his hand tightly as if afraid he might disappear. "He's never been to a school picnic before." "Well, I hope you enjoy it," Miss Emily replied. There was a silent question in her eyes, but she didn't voice it. On the picnic blanket, Chloe immediately offered Luke half of her sandwich. "It's strawberry jam. Mommy made it special." "Thank you, but I brought some snacks too." Luke pulled a small basket with fruit, cookies, and juice from his backpack. "Wow, you came prepared," Chloe exclaimed, "just like a Boy Scout." During the afternoon, Luke watched Chloe play with other children, always returning every few minutes to show him something interesting. A peculiar leaf, an ant carrying a crumb, a drawing she had made in the sand. When the children were called for a group activity, Miss Emily approached Luke. "She talks about you a lot," she commented casually. "Good things, I hope." "Very good things. Apparently you're the best storyteller and you know everything about buildings." Luke smiled, embarrassed. "She exaggerates." "Children usually see the best in us." Miss Emily paused. "Chloe is a special girl. Very smart, very sensitive, I've noticed. Also very vulnerable." There was a tone of gentle warning in her voice. "I understand your concern," Luke replied sincerely. "I know it might seem strange, a grown man befriending a child like this, but I swear my intentions are the best." Miss Emily studied his face for a moment, then nodded slightly. "I believe you. I see how she lights up when she talks about you, how she's more confident since she started having a grown-up friend, as she says." She smiled. "Just be careful with her heart, and with yours too." Before Luke could respond, Chloe came running back carrying a wildflower. "Look what I found, look. It's the prettiest flower in the whole park." Luke accepted the gift with seriousness. "It's beautiful, thank you. You can keep it in your architect book, just like that lady did in the movie we watched at school." "In my sketchbook, that's a great idea." Satisfied, Chloe ran back to join the other children. "See what I mean?" Miss Emily commented softly. "So I'm completely open, completely trusting." Luke nodded, feeling the weight of a responsibility he hadn't even realized he'd taken on. In the following days, Luke continued to show up when school let out. Each meeting brought new discoveries, new stories, new games. They created little traditions almost without noticing. Chloe always showed him her favorite schoolwork of the day. Luke always brought something small to share, whether it was an exotic fruit, an interesting book, or a fun fact about architecture. In the park, they invented a game where they made up stories about the people who walked by. Chloe had a vivid imagination, turning ordinary passers-by into secret agents, explorers, or space travelers. "That man with the hat," she would whisper, pointing discreetly, "is actually a king in disguise. He's looking for his royal dog that ran away from the palace." Luke would play along. And that lady with the shopping bags is actually a scientist doing experiments with different types of bread." Chloe would laugh until she was out of breath, her contagious laughter making Luke smile every time he heard it. During one of these afternoons, while Chloe was drawing in the notebook Luke had brought for her, she asked casually, "Luke, why do you like hanging out with me?" The question caught him by surprise. "Why wouldn't I? You're fun, smart, and you have the best stories." Chloe seemed to consider this. "But you're a grown-up." "Grown-ups usually prefer other grown-ups. Not always. Sometimes kids are much more interesting." "Why?" "Because you see the world differently, more truthfully." Chloe nodded, as if that made perfect sense. "Like when we saw that cloud that looked like a dragon. No other grown-up saw it, just us. Exactly like that." "You're different from other grown-ups," Chloe declared with conviction. "You can still see cool things." Luke felt something warm in his chest. It was a simple but deeply meaningful compliment. As the days went by, Luke realized he had reorganized his life around these meetings. He cancelled meetings, rescheduled appointments, also he could be there when Chloe got out of school, to see her face light up when she spotted him, to hear her excited voice recounting the day's adventures. His colleagues noticed the change, the way he constantly checked the clock in the afternoon, how he would leave in a hurry as soon as he could. "But you've got someone special," his partner commented once, with a knowing smile. Luke just smiled. "Yes, I do," but he didn't elaborate. How could he explain that the person who had transformed his life was a 5-year-old girl with curious blue eyes and a pink backpack? How could he explain that somehow in just a few weeks? Chloe had become a constant in his thoughts, plans and worries. There was no logical explanation, just a bond that grew naturally with each meeting, each shared story, each spontaneous laugh. A bond that Luke felt but couldn't name, strong, natural and quiet. It was on a sunny afternoon in the park, while they were watching the ducks in the pond, that Luke first noticed it. "Look, Luke, that little duckling is following its mommy, just like a line." Chloe pointed excitedly, tilting her head to the side as she watched the scene. The gesture was so familiar that Luke felt a strange sense of déjà vu. It was exactly what he himself did when he considered something interesting, the same precise tilt, the same furrowing of his brow. "They always follow their mother in a line," Luke explained. "It's how they learn to find food and protect themselves." "Like a duck class?" Chloe asked, her head still tilted. "Exactly. A duck class." As they continued their walk, Luke observed other small gestures that Chloe had, unconsciously, begun to adopt. The way she crossed her arms when she was thoughtful, how she raised a finger to emphasize an important point in her stories, how she slightly wrinkled her nose when something intrigued her, little things, insignificant, and yet profoundly significant. A few days later, when Luke met her after school, Chloe came running with a colorful piece of paper in her hands. "I made a drawing in art class." "Look, it's us, sir." Luke examined the artwork seriously. 2 stick figures, one tall and one small, both with yellow hair and big smiles, holding hands in front of what looked like the park where they spent so many afternoons. "It's wonderful, Chloe. You captured our smiles perfectly. I can make more for you. Lots and lots, for you to put up in your house." Luke smiled, moved by the offer. "I'd love that." In the following days, Chloe produced an impressive collection of drawings, Luke and her at the zoo, at the museum, eating ice cream, feeding ducks. Each new drawing was delivered with the same expectation shining in her blue eyes. "So you don't forget our outings," she would explain simply. Luke kept each one carefully, and soon his refrigerator was covered with Chloe's colorful creations, each drawing held up with magnets, like little windows into precious shared moments. "You have eyes just like mine," Chloe observed one afternoon, as they shared a chocolate ice cream. She was looking directly at him, with a surprising intensity for a 5-year-old. Luke smiled. "I guess we do. Blue like a summer sky. Miss Emily says my eyes are special, that they're the color of the ocean on a clear day." "Miss Emily is right. Your eyes are very special." Chloe tilted her head, considering something. "Do you think that's why we're friends?" "Because our eyes look alike." The innocent question touched something deep within Luke. "I think we're friends because we get along well, because we like the same things." "Like chocolate ice cream and dinosaur stories," she agreed solemnly. "Exactly." Chloe turned her attention back to her rapidly melting ice cream, but Luke kept thinking about her observation. He wasn't the first person to notice the resemblance. The previous week, another student's mother had casually commented how Chloe had her father's eyes. Luke had smiled politely without correcting the mistake, feeling a strange mix of embarrassment and something else, something he couldn't name. In his office, Luke hung some of Chloe's drawings on the wall next to his desk. His colleagues noticed the change. "These are good," commented Megan, his assistant, observing a particularly colorful drawing of 2 stick figures stargazing. "Your niece?" "No," Luke replied, but without elaborating. How could he explain who Chloe was in his life? Friend seemed inadequate to describe the bond between an adult and a 5-year-old, but what else could he say? "She's got talent," Megan continued, looking closer. And blue eyes, just like yours, from what I can see. Luke looked at the drawing, where Chloe had carefully colored the eyes of both stick figures with the same bright shade of blue. Coincidence, he muttered, more to himself than to Megan. She replied, with a tone that suggested she thought otherwise. One afternoon, during a snack at the coffee shop near the school, Luke watched as Chloe meticulously arranged her sandwich before eating, cutting it into perfect squares, exactly as he did. "Why do you cut it like that?" he asked, curious. Chloe shrugged. "It's the right way to eat a sandwich. It tastes better in squares." Luke smiled, recognizing his own exact words from weeks ago. "And you always blow on your hot drink first," she continued, watching him with his hot chocolate. "Even when it's not very hot, is it a trick?" "It's more of a habit," Luke explained. "My mom always told me to blow before I drink, so I wouldn't burn myself." "Your mom is smart," Chloe declared, carefully blowing on her own chocolate, perfectly mimicking Luke's gesture. "I'm going to do that too." These little mirrorings continued to appear. How Chloe now folded her napkin in half before using it. How she waited 5 exact seconds before dipping a cookie in milk, just as Luke had taught her. How she interlaced her fingers when she was concentrating, a gesture he made unconsciously during important meetings. His life, once orderly and predictable, was now punctuated by moments of unexpected joy and responsibility. His apartment, once minimalist, now had color. Chloe's drawings covered his refrigerator, were framed on the living room wall, and even on his nightstand. His friend Daniel noticed the change during a rare lunch together. "You seem different," he commented. "More light." Luke smiled. "I feel different." "Is it because of that little girl, Chloe, right? Megan mentioned you have her drawings everywhere. She changed my perspective." Daniel nodded, watching him with curiosity. "I never thought you'd be the type to fall for a kid. You were always so career-focused, so independent." "I didn't imagine it either," Luke admitted. "It happened without me realizing." "The best loves are like that," Daniel replied, surprising Luke with his insight. "They catch you off guard when you're not even looking." One afternoon, while waiting for Chloe at the school exit, Luke watched the other children run to their parents. Hugs, kisses, backpacks being carried, small hands holding larger ones with total trust. When Chloe appeared at the door, her eyes immediately searched for Luke, as they always did. Upon finding him, her face lit up with a smile that seemed to hold all the brightness of the sun. She ran to him, throwing herself into his open arms with complete abandon. "Luke, I missed you." "I missed you too, kiddo. How was your day?" "Great. I learned about whales and drew a huge blue whale. I'm going to make another drawing for you, even bigger." Luke hugged her, feeling the small, trusting body against his, the smell of crayons and apple-scented children's shampoo. A deep, inexplicable feeling enveloped him. Protection, tenderness, something that went beyond anything he had ever experienced. Walking hand in hand to the ice cream shop, Luke noticed how people smiled at them, how some naturally assumed they were father and daughter. The assumption no longer bothered him. On the contrary, it brought a strange sense of belonging, as if a missing piece of his life had finally found its place. "Luke," Chloe said thoughtfully as she licked her ice cream, "do you think friends can be family too?" The question caught him off guard. "I think so. Family is who takes care of you, who loves you, who is there when you need them." "Then you're my family," she concluded with the simple, direct logic of children, "because you do all those things." Luke felt a lump in his throat. "And you're my family too, Chloe." She smiled, satisfied, as if she had solved a great mystery, and turned her attention back to her melting ice cream. Luke looked at the little girl beside him, with her floral dress and uneven pigtails, and felt the full impact of what was happening. The bond between them, strong, natural, inexplicable, was deeper than friendship, more complex than any relationship he had ever had. It was love, he realized, with sudden clarity. A love that didn't need titles or definitions. A love that had grown naturally, day after day, moment after moment. A love that had already completely transformed him, without him realizing it, until it was too late to turn back. And, surprisingly, he didn't want to turn back. He could no longer imagine his life without those curious blue eyes, without those endless questions, without those colorful drawings on his refrigerator. Love had already transformed him, silently, without warning. And Luke embraced this transformation with an open heart. It was an ordinary Friday afternoon. Luke had left work early to pick up Chloe from school, as he had done dozens of times in recent months. They planned to go to the Science Museum, which had just opened a new dinosaur exhibit, something Chloe had been talking about excitedly for weeks. The sky was overcast, threatening rain, but that didn't dampen Luke's enthusiasm. He had even bought tickets in advance to make sure they wouldn't have to wait in line. He arrived at the school a few minutes before the bell, positioning himself in his usual spot, leaning against the large tree near the gate, where Chloe always looked for him first. He smiled at a few parents who now recognized him from the routine, and waved at Miss Emily, who was crossing the yard with a stack of books. The bell rang, and the children began to pour out in noisy little groups. Luke watched the door, searching for Chloe's blonde hair and her pink backpack. When he saw her, his face lit up automatically. She was running towards him with that huge smile she always reserved for him, a sheet of colored paper in her hand, probably a new drawing for his collection. "Luke, look what I made today. It's a stegosaurus and—" "Chloe." A female voice cut off the girl's excited chatter. Luke looked up and saw a woman approaching quickly. Blonde hair in a messy bun, blue nurse's scrubs, pronounced dark circles under her eyes from someone who worked many night shifts. But it was the eyes that paralyzed him. Blue eyes he knew well, eyes he hadn't seen in over 6 years, but which haunted him in occasional dreams. "Sophie." The woman stopped abruptly upon hearing her name, finally looking directly at him. Her face lost all its color. "Luke." The world seemed to freeze for an instant. The noise of the children, the wind in the trees, even the threat of rain, it all disappeared. There were only those blue eyes that, he now realized, were identical to Chloe's. "Do you guys know each other?" Chloe's voice broke the moment, bringing them back to reality. Sophie blinked rapidly, as if waking from a trance. She reached out her hand to her daughter, ignoring the question. "Let's go, Chloe. We're running late." "But, Mommy, Luke and I are going to see the dinosaurs today. He bought special tickets and everything." Sophie shot a look at Luke that contained so many conflicting emotions, it would be impossible to decipher them. Fear, guilt, anger, surprise, all mixed in a second of eye contact before she looked away again. "Not today, sweetie. Grandma Ruth is waiting for us. Remember I told you she came to visit." "But, no buts. Chloe, let's go." The tone was final, allowing no argument. Luke remained motionless, still processing what was happening. Sophie, Chloe's mother, was Sophie. Sophie Parker. The same Sophie who had been his first serious love in college. The same Sophie who disappeared from his life without explanation 6 years ago. 6 years. Chloe was 5. The math was too simple to ignore. "Sophie, can we talk?" His voice came out hoarse, almost unrecognizable to his own ears. Sophie finally faced him, her eyes showing a flash of panic. "Now is not a good time. When would be?" I don't know." She held Chloe's hand more firmly and started to walk away. The girl looked back, confused and clearly disappointed. "Luke, what about the dinosaurs?" "Another day, Chloe," he managed to say, trying to keep his voice steady for the child, even as his world turned upside down. "Have fun with your grandma. Promise we'll go another day." Before he could answer, Sophie pulled Chloe away, quickening her pace almost to a run. Luke watched them walk away, still unable to move. A drop of rain fell on his face, followed by another and another. Soon it was pouring, but he remained motionless under the tree, soaked and in shock. Sophie. The mother he had never met. The woman who worked double shifts, who had raised Chloe with the help of her now-deceased grandparents. The woman who, apparently, had never mentioned his existence to her daughter. And Chloe. Chloe with her blue eyes, so much like his. With her way of tilting her head when she thought, with her stubborn determination, with her love for chocolate ice cream. Chloe, who could be... No, he couldn't jump to conclusions. There were alternative explanations. Coincidences existed. He needed to talk to Sophie, to understand what was happening. "Mr. Bennett, is everything all right?" Miss Emily approached, holding an umbrella. Her face showed genuine concern. "You're soaked. Do you want to come inside and wait for the rain to pass?" Luke shook his head, finally snapping out of his stupor. "I'm fine, thank you." "Are you sure? You look like you've seen a ghost." "In a way I have," he muttered, more to himself than to the teacher. "I'm sorry." "Nothing. I have to go. Thank you, Miss Emily." Luke walked mechanically to his car, sat behind the wheel, and stared at the rain lashing against the windshield. His mind worked frantically, trying to process the revelation of those brief minutes. Sophie Parker. After all these years, the same Sophie who had disappeared from his life when they were in their senior year of college, without explanation, without a proper goodbye. The same Sophie who never answered his calls, who changed her number, who their mutual friend said had transferred to another university. The same Sophie who was now Chloe's mother. Chloe who had entered his life holding a sign in the park. Chloe who called him my grown-up friend. Chloe who shared so many of his mannerisms, his tastes, his expressions. Chloe who could be his daughter. The past wasn't just knocking on his door, it was breaking it down, demanding to be recognized. Luke didn't sleep that night, nor the next. Thoughts swirled in his mind like a relentless carousel, bringing memories from 6 years ago, mixed with images of Chloe. Her smile, her blue eyes, her way of tilting her head when she thought about something complicated. By the third day, he couldn't take it anymore. He needed answers. Finding Sophie's address wasn't difficult. Luke had been to the building's entrance several times, waiting while Mrs. Green picked up Chloe. He had never gone inside, respecting the space and privacy that Sophie, unbeknownst to him, had created between them. Now, standing in front of the red brick building in a modest neighborhood, he felt his heart race. He was about to confront not just his past, but possibly his present and future as well. In the simple lobby, he located the intercom, apartment 3B, S, Parker. His finger hovered over the button for a long moment before pressing it. Silence. Then the familiar, cautious voice. "Yes? Sophie, it's me, Luke. We need to talk." More silence. So long that Luke began to believe she wouldn't answer. "Chloe's not home," came the eventual reply. "She's at my neighbor's house." "I didn't come to see Chloe. I came to talk to you." Another silence. Then the buzz of the door being unlocked. The old elevator took what felt like an eternity to reach the third floor. When the doors opened, Sophie was there, waiting in the hallway. She wore simple jeans and a faded blue t-shirt. She looked paler than usual, her loose blonde hair framing a face that showed the weight of long-kept secrets. "Hello, Luke." "Sophie." They stared at each other for a moment, as if neither knew what to say next. 6 years of silence hung heavy between them. "Do you want to come in?" she finally offered, gesturing to the open door behind her. The apartment was small, but cozy. Photos of Chloe decorated the walls. Baby Chloe, toddler Chloe, Chloe in various stages of growth. A story in pictures that Luke was not a part of. "Sit down," Sophie said, pointing to the worn but clean sofa. "Want something to drink? I have coffee. Or tea." "No, thank you." Luke remained standing. He couldn't sit, not with the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Sophie didn't sit either. They both stood, separated by the small coffee table, like adversaries sizing each other up before a duel. "Why did you never tell me?" Luke finally asked, his voice more restrained than he expected. "Why did you disappear like that?" Sophie looked away, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her shirt. "It's complicated. We have time," she sighed deeply, as if gathering strength. She finally sat down, almost collapsing onto the sofa, and Luke followed her lead, keeping his distance. "You had so many plans," Sophie began, her voice barely a whisper. "Your internship in New York, your master's in architecture, that international scholarship you wanted so badly. You talked about it all the time, building your future step by step. And I was just trying to decide between pediatrics and nursing." Luke frowned. "So what does that have to do with—" "My parents said it was better to end it," she interrupted, the words rushing out now. "Better before I got hurt, that you wouldn't stay." Luke felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. And you believed them? Sophie finally looked at him, her blue eyes, the same as Chloe's, shining with unshed tears. I was young, scared, and ashamed. Ashamed of what, of us? She shook her head, running her hands through her hair in a nervous gesture Luke remembered well. Ashamed of not being enough, of not having grand plans like you, of thinking that, eventually, you would realize that and leave me. Sophie, I loved you. The confession came out easily, naturally, even after so many years. I would never have left you. I know that now, she sighed, but at 21, when my parents were filling my head with all the reasons our relationship wouldn't work out in the long run, it seemed easier to end it before the inevitable happened. Luke shook his head, trying to understand. Well, you could have talked to me. We could have worked it out together. I should have. Silence fell between them again. Luke looked around at the photos of Chloe, at the toys neatly arranged in a box in the corner, at the children's books stacked on the side table. The girl's presence permeated every inch of the apartment. The question he really wanted to ask burned on his lips, but something held him back. Sophie's look, a mixture of guilt, fear, and vulnerability, was too painful to confront right now, and maybe deep down he already knew the answer. All the signs were there, too obvious to ignore. I have to go, Luke said abruptly, standing up. It's too much to process all at once. Sophie stood up too, her face a mask of forced composure, though her eyes revealed the pain she felt. I understand. Luke headed for the door but stopped before opening it. I'll be back, Sophie. We have more to talk about. A flash of something, relief, hope, crossed her face. I know. Without another word, Luke left, closing the door softly behind him. 3 days later, Luke's phone rang. It was Sophie. Can we meet? Tonight. Where? At my place. Chloe is having a sleepover at a friend's house from school. I'll be there at 7. As evening fell, Luke found himself back in Sophie's apartment. This time, she invited him to sit on the small balcony, little more than a ledge with space for 2 chairs, but it offered a view of the park where it had all begun. Sophie had made coffee. The 2 steaming mugs between them felt like a peace offering, a symbol of civility for a conversation that would be anything but simple. For long minutes, they sat in silence, watching the sky gradually darken. It was Sophie who finally spoke, her voice almost a whisper. I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks after I broke up with you. Luke closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing the confirmation of what he had already suspected. Even so, hearing the words aloud was like a physical shock. Oh, why didn't you come find me? His voice came out hoarse, emotional. I had a right to know. I know that now, Sophie replied, looking at her own hands. At the time, it felt impossible. I had already decided it would be better for you to go your own way without me. A pregnancy would only complicate everything. My parents helped me raise Chloe. I never had the courage to look for you. 6 years, Sophie. Luke struggled to keep his voice under control. We lost 6 years. I know. Tears began to stream down her face. Not a day goes by that I don't regret it. Is she my daughter? The question hung between them, laden with so many emotions and possibilities that it seemed to have physical weight. Sophie looked up, meeting Luke's gaze. Slowly, she nodded, the tears now running freely down her face. You didn't know, but she chose you. The impact of the words hit him like a physical wave. Luke felt the world spin around him. Despite all the suspicions, all the signs, hearing the confirmation was something else entirely. Chloe was his daughter, the girl with the sign in the park, the child who had transformed his life in recent months, the little person whose drawings covered his refrigerator, whose stories filled his days, whose smile lit up his world, was his daughter. Luke felt tears burn his eyes. He couldn't speak. There were no words to express the whirlwind of emotions flooding him. Shock, joy, anger at the lost time, fear of the future, overwhelming love. Sophie remained silent, giving him space to process. The only sound was the distant hum of the city and Luke's heavy breathing as he tried to regain control. Finally, when he could speak, his voice was thick with emotion. All this time, all these months together, and I didn't know. "I realized who you were when I saw you with her at the school," Sophie confessed. "It was as if the world stopped. I never imagined you would meet like that. How did it happen, of all the people in the park that day? Fate." "Coincidence," Sophie shrugged, a sad smile on her lips. "Or maybe something deeper, something neither you nor I could explain." Luke thought of all the moments shared with Chloe. The stories in the park, the ice cream at the coffee shop, the drawings on the refrigerator. How she ran to him after school, how she held his hand with complete trust, how she shared her secrets and dreams, how she tilted her head just like him when she was thoughtful, how she had his eyes, his smile, his way of seeing the world. And suddenly, it all made sense. The immediate bond, the inexplicable connection, the love that had emerged naturally, effortlessly. It wasn't coincidence, it was his own flesh and blood. The days following the revelation passed in a whirlwind of emotions for Luke. Shock, joy, anger at the lost time, fear of the future. It all swirled in his heart as he tried to process the truth. Chloe was his daughter. At first, Sophie suggested they keep their distance for a while, so they could both absorb the situation. Luke firmly refused. "I've already lost 5 years," he said. "I'm not losing another day." They agreed, then, to maintain their routine of meetings with Chloe, while they decided how and when to tell her the truth. For the little girl, nothing changed. Luke remained her grown-up friend, who picked her up from school, took her for ice cream, and listened to her endless stories about dinosaurs and stars. But for Luke, everything was different. Every smile from Chloe, every gesture, every word had a new meaning. She wasn't just a child he was fond of, she was his daughter, his blood, a part of him that existed in the world without his knowledge. In the moments they were together, Luke found himself studying every detail of her face, identifying traits that came from him, mannerisms that had been passed down without contact. The way she furrowed her brow when she was concentrating, the way she tilted her head when something intrigued her. Even her laugh, that laugh that had always warmed him inside, had echoes of his own. How had he not noticed before? How had he not seen the obvious right in front of his eyes? On a sunny afternoon, Luke took Chloe to the zoo. Watching her run from one enclosure to another, her blue eyes wide with fascination, was like seeing a piece of his own childhood relived. "Luke, look." "The lion is looking at me," she shouted, pointing to the large feline resting lazily in the sun. "He must find you interesting," Luke replied, crouching down beside her. "Do you think he thinks I'm his cub?" Chloe asked, her imagination always running wild. The word cub hit Luke unexpectedly. Daughter, his daughter. "Maybe," he managed to reply, emotion tightening his throat. Chloe didn't seem to notice his hesitation, already running to the next enclosure, where monkeys were performing acrobatics on suspended ropes. Later, while sharing cotton candy on a bench near the central fountain, Chloe looked at him with that peculiar seriousness she sometimes assumed. "And you're always going to be my friend, right, Luke?" "Always," he promised, his heart aching at the irony of the question. He would be so much more than a friend, if only she knew. "Even when I get big, especially when you get big." Satisfied with the answer, Chloe turned her attention back to the cotton candy, oblivious to the emotional turmoil she had caused with her innocent question. When he dropped Chloe off at home after their outing, Luke found Sophie waiting at the door. There was a moment of silent tension between them. They were still learning to navigate this new dynamic, where they were no longer strangers, not exactly friends, but bound by a bond deeper and more permanent than any other. "Did she have fun?" Sophie asked, as Chloe ran inside to get her drawings from the day. "A lot. I think her favorite was the penguin habitat," Sophie smiled. "She's always liked penguins, ever since she was little." "Me too," Luke commented. "When I was a kid, I had a collection of penguin figurines that—" He stopped when he noticed Sophie's look, a mixture of surprise and sadness. "What?" he asked. "Nothing. It's just these little things, these similarities. They were there all along." Before Luke could reply, Chloe returned, proudly carrying a folder full of drawings. "Look, Mummy, I drew all the animals we saw. Luke said this is the best elephant he's ever seen." Sophie knelt to admire the works of art, praising each one with the enthusiasm only a mother can have for her child's work. Over Chloe's head, she exchanged a look with Luke, a look full of meaning, of recognition of the moment they were sharing as parents. Parents. The word was still strange to Luke, new and scary and wonderful all at once. The following night, after Chloe was in bed, Sophie invited Luke for a cup of tea. Sitting in the small kitchen, with the lights low so as not to wake the girl sleeping in the next room, they finally had the conversation they both knew was inevitable. "She needs to know," Luke said simply, after a long silence. Sophie nodded, turning the cup between her hands. "I know. It's not fair to her. Not to me. Not to you, really. I'm scared of how she'll react," Sophie admitted, her vulnerability clear in her voice. "What if she gets confused or hurt that we hid this from her?" "Kids are more resilient than we think," Luke replied, "and Chloe is especially strong." "Yes, she is." A small smile touched Sophie's lips. "Like you." The compliment caught Luke off guard. After so many years of silence and secrets, they were just beginning to relearn each other's language. "When?" he asked. Sophie took a deep breath. "This weekend, Saturday. You could come here and—" "I'll tell her," Sophie said firmly. "She deserves to hear it from me, calmly, truthfully." Luke nodded, respecting her decision. "I'll be here. For both of you." For a moment, it seemed Sophie would say something more. Her gaze softened, and Luke glimpsed an echo of the young woman he had fallen in love with years ago, but the moment passed, and she just smiled slightly. "Thank you." It was a small thank you, simple, but loaded with meaning. "Thank you for not hating me, for not judging, for being here now." They were, finally, on the same side. Saturday arrived faster than either of them was prepared for. Luke woke up early, too nervous to sleep. He spent hours trying to work, staring at architectural plans without really seeing them, his mind fixed on what was to come. How would Chloe react? Would she be happy, confused, angry? Would she reject the idea? The possibilities were endless, and each one frightened him in a different way. At 3 in the afternoon, as agreed, Luke knocked on the door of Sophie's apartment. She opened it immediately, as if she had been waiting right behind it. She looked as nervous as he felt. "She's in the living room, drawing," Sophie informed him in a low voice. "I haven't said anything yet. I thought it would be better to wait for you." Luke nodded, his heart beating so hard he was sure Sophie could hear it. "Let's do this right," he said, more to himself than to her. The living room was lit by the golden afternoon light streaming through the open windows. Chloe was sitting on the floor, surrounded by colored pencils, working intensely on a drawing. Upon seeing Luke, her face lit up with that smile that always made his heart ache. "Luke, you came. Look what I'm drawing. It's a treehouse. Do you think we could build a real one someday?" "Maybe," he replied, his voice hoarser than he intended. "It looks amazing." Sophie sat on the sofa, gesturing for Luke to do the same. Then she called out softly, "Chloe, sweetie, can you come here a minute? We need to talk about something important." The girl dropped her pencils and approached, immediately sensing the serious atmosphere in the air. Her smile vanished, replaced by a cautious expression. "Did I do something wrong?" No, sweetie," Sophie quickly assured her. "It's nothing like that. It's something good, actually. Something we should have told you before." Chloe looked from Sophie to Luke and back, her small face a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Sophie held out her hand, indicating for Chloe to sit beside her on the sofa. Once the girl was settled, Sophie put her arm around her shoulders, pulling her closer. Luke watched, his heart racing, knowing this moment would change everything. In a sweet, steady voice, Sophie began, "Chloe, you've always asked me about your dad. Remember?" The girl nodded solemnly. "And I always said he couldn't be with us. But that wasn't the whole truth." Sophie paused, gathering her courage. Luke wanted to help, to say something, but he knew this moment belonged to Sophie. It was her right to tell her daughter the truth she had kept for so long. "The truth is, you have a dad, and you already know him." Chloe frowned, confused. Then, slowly, her eyes widened in understanding. Her head turned to Luke, who felt the weight of that blue gaze so much like his own as never before. "Luke," she whispered, her voice small and full of hope. Sophie nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "Yes, sweetie, Luke is your dad." Time seemed to freeze. Luke couldn't breathe, couldn't move, as he watched a series of emotions cross Chloe's face. Surprise, confusion, assimilation, and finally, something that looked like joy. Slowly, Chloe got up from the sofa and walked over to Luke. She stopped directly in front of him, her blue eyes examining his face as if seeing him for the first time. "You're my dad?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Luke swallowed the lump in his throat. "Yes, but even without knowing, I already loved you." For a terrible moment, Chloe just stared at him, her little face unreadable. Then, without warning, she threw herself into his arms, hugging him with all the strength her 5-year-old body could muster. "You're the best dad in the world," she declared against his chest. Luke hugged her back, tears now streaming freely down his face. He looked over Chloe's head at Sophie and saw that she was crying too, a trembling smile on her lips. "I knew it," Chloe said, pulling back slightly to look at Luke. "I knew you were special. That's why we have the same eyes, right? And the same way of tilting our heads when we're thinking." Luke laughed through his tears, amazed at her perception. "Yes, that's why." "And are you going to live with us now?" Chloe asked, looking hopefully from Luke to Sophie. The adults exchanged a quick glance, caught off guard by the direct question. "No, sweetie," Sophie answered gently. "Luke has his own house, but he's going to be in your life now. Always. Like a real dad," Luke added. "Better than a grown-up friend?" Chloe asked, with that adorable seriousness she sometimes assumed. "Different," Luke answered carefully. "Being your dad is the most important job I've ever had." That seemed to satisfy Chloe, who smiled and hugged him again. "So can I call you Dad now?" The simplicity of the question almost undid Luke completely. "I would love that," he managed to say, his voice choked with emotion. Sophie watched the scene, silent tears still streaming down her face. When Luke looked up at her, he saw not only sadness for the lost time, but also relief and maybe, just maybe, a glimmer of hope for the future. Chloe, apparently tired of the emotional intensity, suddenly pulled away. "I'm going to make a new drawing," she announced, "of our family." As she ran back to her colored pencils, Luke and Sophie shared a look loaded with meaning. It wouldn't be easy. There were years of absence to make up for, more detailed explanations that would need to be given as Chloe grew, a new family dynamic to navigate. But for now, in this perfect moment, it was enough. Chloe knew the truth. Luke was a father, not just in blood, but recognized, accepted, loved. And for the first time in years, the future seemed full of bright possibilities. The first few weeks after the revelation were a period of adjustment for everyone. A new routine began to form, as natural as it was unexpected, reorganizing the lives of Luke, Sophie, and Chloe around a now shared truth. For Chloe, the transition was surprisingly smooth. Children have an extraordinary capacity for adaptation, and for her, discovering that her grown-up friend was actually her father seemed to just confirm something she might have already suspected deep down. The only visible change was the word she now used to call him, Dad. Luke never got tired of hearing it. Every time Chloe uttered that simple syllable, he felt a warmth in his chest that no professional achievement had ever provided. "Dad, look what I drew at school. Dad, did you know that whales sleep with half their brain awake? Dad, are you picking me up tomorrow too?" The word never sounded rehearsed or forced from her lips. Chloe adopted it naturally, as if she had just been waiting for permission to use it. At school, Chloe announced the news with the simple pride of children. "My dad came to pick me up today," Luke heard her say to a friend as he waited at the gate. "He was always here, we just didn't know it." Miss Emily smiled at Luke from the classroom door, a gentle smile that conveyed understanding. "That explains a lot," she commented as she passed him. "The eyes, the mannerisms. I always thought there was something familiar. Weekends now belong to the three of them. Saturdays in the park, Sundays for movies or carefully planned outings to create memories that would somehow compensate for the lost years." "We're not trying to go back to the past," Sophie explained to a curious friend who asked if she and Luke had gotten back together. "We're just building something new," thought Chloe. But there were moments when the past inevitably echoed in the present, like when Luke made pancakes in Sophie's kitchen on a Sunday morning, just as he used to when they were students sharing a small apartment near campus, or when Sophie unconsciously straightened his shirt collar before they went out, a gesture so familiar that neither of them commented on it. Small moments of domestic intimacy that felt both new and old, strange and comfortable. "Can I stay with Dad tonight?" Chloe asked one day, catching them both by surprise. It was a Thursday, not usually part of Luke's routine with her. Sophie hesitated for only a second before replying, "If your dad doesn't have other plans." "Nothing that can't be rescheduled," Luke replied promptly, and so another piece of the puzzle fell into place. Occasional nights at Luke's apartment became part of the new routine, with a room slowly being transformed into Chloe's space. Walls painted seafoam green, her favorite color of the week. Shelves for her books and toys, a bed with a starry quilt. The first time Chloe slept over, Luke could barely sleep, getting up at every noise to check on her. In the morning, he found her sleeping peacefully, clutching the teddy bear he had bought especially for the occasion. "Did you sleep well?" he asked when she finally opened her eyes. "Yes," Chloe replied, rubbing the sleep from her face. "But you look tired, Dad." Luke laughed. "I'll get better with practice." The parental responsibilities, once borne exclusively by Sophie, were now shared. Luke learned about school routines, doctor's appointments, food preferences, allergies, nighttime fears, and all the 1,000 little things that make up a child's life. "She doesn't like carrots," Sophie explained as they prepared dinner together, moving around the small kitchen in a synchronized dance that required no words. "But if you mix them well into the sauce, she doesn't even notice." "Noted," Luke replied, already memorizing the information along with so many others. Chloe slept better with a dim light on. She loved stories about the ocean. She was afraid of thunder but fascinated by lightning. She hated socks with seams at the toes. The coordination between them developed with surprising ease. Text messages about school schedules, quick calls about who would pick Chloe up on which day, consultations about decisions that once belonged only to Sophie. "I think she has a fever," Luke said one night, his hand on the forehead of a Chloe who had fallen asleep on the couch during a movie. "Not too high, but..." "There's a thermometer in the bathroom drawer," Sophie replied, already going to get it, "and fever reducer in the kitchen cabinet, second shelf." They worked together, taking her temperature, administering the medicine, placing cool compresses on Chloe's forehead. When the fever finally broke around midnight, they both sighed in relief. "You're good at this," Sophie commented as they put away the medicine. "Patient, calm." "I had a good teacher," Luke replied, and the smile they exchanged contained more than just relief over Chloe's improvement. There were also the discreet, almost imperceptible moments when Sophie's gaze met Luke's over Chloe's head during dinner, or when their fingers brushed briefly as they passed the salt. Little sparks of something unsaid, unexplored, but definitely present. Neither of them mentioned these moments. There was a tacit agreement that the focus was on Chloe, that their relationship was now one of co-parents, of partners in this new family setup. But sometimes, when Chloe was asleep and they shared a cup of tea on the balcony, talking about the day or making plans for the weekend, the silence between sentences carried unasked questions, unexplored possibilities. "She has your eyes," Sophie said one night, looking at a recent photo of Chloe on Luke's phone. "I was always afraid someone would notice. And my stubbornness, apparently," Luke added with a smile. "Oh, she definitely inherited that from you," Sophie laughed. "I still remember how you could argue for hours about the best way to design a treehouse. Because I was right. See? Just like you." They laughed together, and for a moment it was as if the 6 years of separation had never existed. But they both knew it wasn't that simple. Time had passed. They had changed. Life had taken different paths. And yet, "Are you guys boyfriend and girlfriend?" Chloe asked one day, direct as always, as the three of them had ice cream after an afternoon at the zoo. Luke choked on his chocolate cone. Sophie blushed, her eyes fixed on her own ice cream. "No, sweetie," Sophie finally replied. "Your dad and I are friends. We're your parents. But you can be boyfriend and girlfriend too, can't you?" Chloe insisted, with the simple logic of children. "Like Emma's parents." "It's complicated, Chloe," Luke tried to explain. "Sometimes adults can be parents together without being boyfriend and girlfriend." Chloe considered this for a moment, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Being a grown-up is boring," she finally declared, turning her attention back to her melting ice cream. "Too many complicated things." Luke and Sophie exchanged a look over her head, a look that said a lot without needing words. As the weeks passed, the new routine solidified. Luke completely reorganized his professional life to accommodate his role as a father. Meetings were moved, projects were resized, priorities were readjusted. "I never thought I'd see you leaving the office at 5 o'clock sharp," his partner commented, surprised by Luke's new punctuality at the end of the workday. "I have more important commitments now," Luke replied simply. Sophie also made adjustments. After years of shouldering the responsibility of raising Chloe alone, allowing herself to share that burden was a gradual process. "You don't have to call to check if everything's okay," she told Luke, the third time he called, during the first weekend Chloe spent entirely with him. "I trust you." Those 3 words meant more than they seemed. Trusting Luke with Chloe was the final acknowledgement that he was, in fact, a father, not just in name or blood, but in daily practice. On a quiet evening, while watching Chloe play on the playground in the park near Sophie's apartment, Luke reflected on how his life had changed in just a few months. "If someone had told me at the beginning of the year that by July I'd be a father, I would have thought it was impossible," he commented. Sophie smiled, her eyes following Chloe as she swung higher and higher, shouting for them to watch. "And if someone had told me that Chloe would finally have her father in her life, and that it would be so natural, I wouldn't have believed it either." "Look how high I'm going," Chloe yelled from the swing. "We see you, sweetie," Sophie replied, waving. Then, quieter, to Luke, "It's been good for her, for all of us, actually." Luke nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude for the unexpected path his life had taken. An unconventional family. A new way of being a family, Sophie corrected gently. Luke liked that definition. It was exactly that. Not an attempt to recreate what could have been, but the construction of something new, based on the present, not the past. He watched Sophie for a moment, her delicate profile against the evening light, her blonde hair carelessly tied back, her attentive eyes following Chloe's every move. The woman who had been his first true love, the mother of his daughter, the person with whom he now shared the most important responsibility of his life. As if feeling his gaze, Sophie turned to him. For an instant, something passed between them, recognition, perhaps, of all they had lost, and simultaneously, of all they had found. They don't go back to the past, but they allow a new present to blossom. Autumn arrived, painting the park trees in shades of red and gold. 3 months had passed since the revelation that transformed their lives, and the new routine no longer felt so new. It had simply become their life. Luke spent 4 nights a week in his apartment, and 3 on the sofa bed in Sophie's living room, to be present for Chloe's mornings. The girl divided her time between the 2 homes, carrying toys and books from one place to another in her pink backpack, adapting to the new dynamic with the natural flexibility of children. To any outside observer, they looked like a family in every way but on paper. They shared meals, responsibilities, decisions. They attended school meetings together. They planned holidays and birthdays. They worked as a team to give Chloe the stability and love every child deserves. And yet, there was an invisible line that neither Luke nor Sophie had dared to cross. A tacit boundary between what they were, co-parents, partners in raising Chloe, and what they could be. Until that October night. Chloe had fallen asleep after her bedtime story, exhausted after a day at an amusement park, a gift from Luke for her good performance at school. Sophie found Luke on the small balcony, looking at the city lights with a cup of tea in his hands. "Is she asleep?" he asked as Sophie slid the glass door open and came out to join him, like a rock. "I think you wore her out with all those rides," Luke smiled. That was the plan. Sophie sat in the chair next to him, pulling a sweater over her shoulders to shield herself from the cool night air. For a few moments, they sat in silence, enjoying the quiet after a busy day. "She's so happy," Sophie commented finally. "I've never seen her like this before. It's been good for her, having both of us." "For me too," Sophie admitted, her voice soft. "Sharing all of this, the joys, the worries, it's like a weight has been lifted from my shoulders." Luke nodded, understanding. "I don't know how you did it alone for so long. I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice, Sophie." She looked at him, the dim light from the balcony illuminating her profile. "Some choices are harder than others." Silence fell between them again, but this time it was heavy with unsaid words, unasked questions, unexplored possibilities. Luke swirled the cup in his hands, gathering courage. There was something he needed to say, something that had been growing inside him since they rediscovered each other, something that went beyond his role as Chloe's father. "Sophie." Luke turned to face her directly, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made Sophie hold her breath. "Sophie, I never forgot you. I loved you and I still do. We could try again. For us, for Chloe." The words hung between them, fragile and powerful at the same time. Sophie blinked quickly, her eyes welling with unshed tears. "Luke, we don't have to go back to how we were before," he continued, the words now flowing in a steady stream, as if he were afraid of losing courage if he stopped. "We're different people now. But what we've been building these last few months, it's not just for Chloe, is it? There's something between us. There always has been." Sophie looked out at the city below, the lights shining like earthly stars. When she spoke, her voice was almost a whisper. "I'm so scared, Luke. Scared of messing up what we've built, of disappointing Chloe if it doesn't work out, of losing you again." "You won't lose me," Luke promised, reaching out to touch her face, gently turning it to face him. "No matter what happens between us, I'll always be her father. I'll always be here." Sophie closed her eyes for a moment, leaning her face into his hand. "I never stopped loving you," she confessed finally. "Even in the moments I tried to hate you for not being there, even knowing it was my fault for never telling you, a part of me has always been yours." Luke felt his heart race. "And now?" Sophie opened her eyes, a soft smile forming on her lips, even as a single tear ran down her cheek. "We're already a family, Luke. Now we just need to believe it." She reached out her hand, intertwining her fingers with his. The simple gesture, their hands joined under the stars, seemed to seal a promise greater than any words could express. It was not a return to the past, but a step forward into a future they had only dared to imagine. Luke brought her hand to his lips, kissing it softly. "We'll make it work this time." "This time we have an even bigger reason to," Sophie replied, her eyes briefly glancing toward the window of the room where Chloe slept peacefully. For a long moment, they just stood there, hands intertwined, gazes connected, the silence between them no longer heavy with uncertainty, but with possibilities. "I'm thinking," Luke said finally, his voice low so as not to break the spell of the moment, "about how much we lost. 6 years. Sophie, 6 years we could have been together, watching Chloe grow, building our life." "I know," Sophie replied, the pain evident in her voice. "Not a day goes by that I don't regret the choice I made." "I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty," Luke clarified quickly. "It's just, I don't want to waste any more time. I don't want another 6 years of what-ifs." Sophie nodded, understanding. "What are you suggesting?" "Nothing rash," he assured her. "We can take it slow. Figure out who we are now, as adults, as parents. But I want to be with you, Sophie. I want us to be a real family." "We are a real family," Sophie corrected gently. "We don't need papers or rings for that." "I know," Luke smiled. "But I want more than just sharing responsibilities and the occasional sofa bed. I want to share my life with you. I want to be there when you wake up and when you go to sleep. I want arguments about who left the toothpaste open and who forgot to pay the power bill. I want the whole package, Sophie." A soft laugh escaped her lips, mixed with the tears that were now falling freely. "I never thought anyone could make unpaid bills and toothpaste sound romantic." It's a gift, Luke joked, then became serious again. What do you think? Sophie took a moment to answer, her eyes searching his with an intensity that made Luke's heart almost stop. I think it took me too long to believe we could be happy, that we deserved to be happy, together. That night, sitting on the small balcony under the starry sky, they made a choice, not driven by the impulsiveness of youth or romantic fantasies, but with the clarity that comes from experience, from loss, from regrets, and above all, from the love that had survived it all. A wholehearted choice. When they finally stood up to go inside, the night had grown late, but something new had begun. They stopped at the door of Chloe's room, watching her sleep. The little girl who, unknowingly, had reunited her parents, sewing back together the fabric of a family that had never had a chance to exist before. Sophie rested her head on Luke's shoulder, her hand still in his. "And do you think she'll be happy?" she whispered. Luke smiled, remembering Chloe's innocent question from weeks ago. "Are you guys boyfriend and girlfriend?" "I think she's been waiting for this longer than we have," Sophie laughed softly, and the sound warmed Luke's heart like nothing else could. That night, for the first time, the three of them were together. Not just physically under the same roof, but united by conscious choices, by forgiveness granted, by a love that had found its way through the years of separation, whole, at peace, a family. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.